welcome back. It's NFL Survivor Week number 20. We're in the Divisional playoff round. Picking winners with the Cheezeman. How'd you do last week? Hey, sorry I wasn't here last week. This week we're back and we're going to go through real quickly just a couple weeks what happened. First of all, in my big pool, did you win? How'd you do? You can see there my Survivor plays last couple of weeks. I told you to take New England in week 18 and they lost. They stunk it up. Of course, it was a Blizzard Bowl and I probably would have changed my pick if I were in the pool, but like I said, I'd lost a couple times already. I was just playing through to show you who I would have picked based on what I had left. Last week I would have taken Buffalo. My thought was you take Buffalo round 1. I was going to take Dallas round 2. And then go either Baltimore or San Francisco in the final 2 rounds here. But take a look, and in my one note, in my other pool that ended week 18, a standard Survivor pool, I took Tampa Bay. My opponent took Cincinnati. And we split the pool, so that was pretty cool. But in the meantime, here's my picks in the primary pool, just showing you again. I would have gone New England, but you can see I've lost 3 times already this year. So I had a terrible year in the big pool. But take a look at this, 1,791 entries. We have a winner. We have a single winner already. Congratulations to them. Amazing job. You could see there last week, 2 people chose Dallas, and they chose Buffalo for the victory. And that's where I would have ended up on is Buffalo. My thought was take Dallas in the second round. Of course, Dallas stunk it up and lost. I would have defaulted into that Buffalo pick and still have been alive. And then this week, I think you go Detroit, right? Anyways, congratulations to that team. The game is over. Huge pool, 1,791 entries, and they win it all to themselves. Unbelievable. Here's my top 5 plays for last week. You see we went 3-2. I love the Cleveland-Houston over. We've talked about this all year. Cleveland's the number 1 defense. But on the road, they give up some 28 points, 29 points a game. So, and Houston's offense isn't going to be stopped necessarily. So I love that over. Kelsey over 57.5. Look, I know he's not having his best season, and he didn't play his best game. But normally Travis Kelsey's OU totals are in the 70s. This looked too easy. It looked like a gift. And even though he didn't play that great, he went over. Dallas team total over. Now, honestly, I thought Dallas would win. They've been averaging 38 points a game at home, and they only had 16 with a couple minutes to go, and they actually pulled it out. So this was lucky, admittedly lucky. I would have gone Dallas -7. Look, I hate Dallas as much as y'all. Hate them. And I love to watch them choke. But I thought, my God, this has to be the year Dak and that team finally gets over the hump, gets a playoff win, and they still choke. Oh, my God. That was awful. And then Detroit Rams over. Both these teams' offenses are clicking. Stafford back in Detroit. Goff plays awesome at home. I thought you'd get this one, even though it was a high total, but 47 didn't get there. You can see on the other side, I like Kansas City under, Kansas City -3 in that freezing cold weather against Miami. Philly-Tampa over. Philly took an extra point off the board, a field goal off the board. Otherwise, they get that over. I did like Baker Mayfield. He was my favorite passing over of the weekend. He hit it. But Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs, I thought those numbers were reasonable. Neither one got their overs. Okay, week 18, you can see I went 3-2 there as well. I told you to take New England -2. Of course, I didn't realize they were going to be playing in a blizzard of North Pole proportions. That doesn't excuse it. I lost that one. I still think they should have won. They just stunk this year. I did hit Kenny Walker rush over, Dallas Washington over, Rachaad White rush over. Jake Browning, unfortunately, he was headed to get his over. And Cincinnati rolled over, who was it that weekend? I can't remember anymore, but it was a team that wasn't playing their starters, I don't think. And Joe Mixon was running the ball in, so they didn't need to throw it as much in the second half, and he didn't make it over. So you can see the other plays there. Real quick, our Survivor metrics. You can see it's interesting. Home team's favorites. All these metrics came pretty close to their norms. Thursday night favorites had a great year at 76%. Against the spread, big year for home teams, big year for favorites, both home and away. The under romps again for the second year in a row, hitting almost 54%. And we had 21 upsets of teams favored by 6 points and higher this year, which is right near our normal average of 22. Here's our wild card results. I know this page looks busy, but you can see it shows each game, the spreads, the OUs, the scores, and then you've got who won straight up, the dog or favorite. Did it go over under? Was it home or away? Down below, it's all summarized. Dogs 3-3, overs 3-3. Home teams went 5-1. That's pretty good. That's much better than normal. Against the spread, favorites only 2-4. Home teams were 4-2. Now, Here's this week's divisional playoff round. 4 games. I want you to notice something. We got Baltimore and San Francisco, big favorites, 9 points and higher. All right, they're the 2 number 1 seeds, just like last year. We got a 6-point favorite, Detroit. We got a 3-point favorite, roughly, in Buffalo. I want you to take a look at something last year, right? So we have 2 basically 9-point favorites, a 6-point favorite, a 3-point favorite. Last year, what do we have? 2 basically 9-point favorites, the number 1 seeds, a 6-point favorite, and a 3-point favorite. It's almost identical to what we saw last year. You can see how those games finished. A couple things to note. The favorites went 3-1 overall, only 2-2 against the spread. But the unders were 4-0 last year. 4-0, remember that? Unders, 4-0. Here's some playoff data I want to give you. I would have given this last week, but here we are this week. Okay, this is favorites by round. So the first round of the playoffs is the wild card weekend, which we had last weekend. Now we're in the divisional round, then the conference championship round, then the Super Bowl. So you can see here favorites by round and how they do. Wild card round is about 64%, 65% winners. Divisional is about the same. Conference round, favorites do better straight up. And then against the spread, you can see the divisional round is the worst round for favorites against the spread. Conference round is the best. As we look at home teams, it's the same story. You can see home teams by round. Of course, last week, the wild card week, the home teams did great. But usually what happens is the home teams do better as the rounds progress. Certainly by conference round, usually you're seeing the number 1 seeds at home winning most of the time. Against the spread down below, you can see once again the divisional round, the home teams do the worst against the spread in the 3 rounds. Now, the over-under by round, normally wild card weekend is the worst weekend to the over. However, I want you to take a look at something. The divisional round in the last 18 years is 51.5% to the over. Conference round, you can see, does the best. But in the last 5 years, things have changed up. The divisional round is the worst round for overs. Let me repeat that. In the last 5 years, the divisional round is the worst round for overs. I had some other data coming up I want to show you. Just be aware of it. Doesn't mean we're going to do as badly this year, but here's some playoff info data around the divisional round, okay? First of all, for in-play players, and I know a lot of you are doing that these days because you could actually do better there than picking before the game. The teams leading at halftime are 50-11 straight up winning the game. So if you're winning at halftime, you're going to win the game 82% of the time. Okay, so rarely does the team losing at halftime come back to win. What's interesting there, though, is in all playoff games, okay, all rounds, it's around 74.5%, but in the divisional round, it's up at 82%. This is the best round where if you jump out to that halftime lead, you're probably winning the game, all right? Now, against the spread, this is really interesting. If the favorite leads at halftime, you can see there 2/3 of the time, they're going to cover the spread. So 2-1, if favorites lead at halftime, 2-1, they're covering the spread. Look at the dogs, though. If a dog leads at halftime, they're going to cover the spread almost perfectly 20 for 20. They're 19-1, 95% they cover. If a dog's winning at halftime, guys, chances are they're going to cover the spread. That's what's happened historically in the divisional round, all right? I don't know why. It's just the way it is. This is interesting because this week, teams giving between 8 and 9.5 points, okay? They are 2-10 against the spread in the divisional round. And you can see this week, what do we have? San Francisco -9.5, Baltimore -9. You kind of lean towards the dogs in these games, right? Games with an over-under between 43 and 45.5 points, they hit the over 2-1. 10-5, they go over. And as I showed you before in the divisional round is the worst for overs in the last few years, but this number, for whatever reason, this little pocket seems to do well. This week you've got Baltimore at 43.5, Buffalo 45.5. I think Buffalo started out at 46.5. The truth is, I like the Baltimore over. I kind of like the Buffalo game to go under. All right, a couple other quick things with the divisional round. Last 5 years, the over-under average per game, all right? So what Vegas sets the total at per game on average is over 49 points the last 5 years. The actual score per game is only 46, so you can see why we have all these unders. The over-under 7-13 last 5 years at 35% for the overs. Last year, the OU average per game was 48.6. The actual score per game was only 40. 8 points lower, thus 0-4 to the over, right? 4-0 unders, 0.00. They pulled a Bluto Blutarski. Some of my old friends will know what I'm talking about. If you're young, you may not. This year, our OU average per game right now is 47.25. So it's lower than the 5-year history. It's lower than last year by almost 1.5 points. It's still pretty high, is my point. The teams who have the most rushing yards in a game in the divisional round win 70% of the time. It's not necessarily who runs the ball the best. It's a combination of who rushes the ball well and who stops the run, right? Teams passing for the most yards only win 58.7% of the games. Teams with the most total yards win just under 60% of the time. But again, in the divisional round, teams who run the ball have more rushing yards than the other team win 70% of the time. All right, now here's our playoff team ranks. All right, so we've got all eight teams here in all the categories we usually look at. Offense, pass offense, rush offense, defense, pass defense, rush defense, and then turnover margin. Let's look at rushing offense, that third column there, rushing offense. The team in red, San Francisco, is the number 2 rush offense. They're playing the other team in red, Green Bay. They're the number 14 rush offense. So you favor San Francisco here a notch, but here's where it gets even bigger. When you look at rush defense, San Francisco is the number 3 rushing defense. Green Bay's 28th. That's why I like San Francisco this game. I don't think they lose. I'm not sure they cover that 9.5, but I think San Francisco rolls. They're not Dallas, guys. Dallas right away gets behind, and they give up on running the ball. San Francisco will not. Shanahan will not. He's got McCaffrey, who has the most 100-yard rushing games, I think, of all running backs this year, except for maybe Kyron Williams. Anyways, look at some of the others here now. Baltimore plays Houston, right? Rush offense. Baltimore's number 1. Of course, Lamar does a lot of that. Houston's 25th. Now, rush defense, though, Houston is the 6th best rush defense. Baltimore's 14th. This is why I give a little credence to Houston. And here's another reason. Look at turnover margin. These are 2 of the 3 best turnover margin teams in all of football. I mean, DeMeco Ryans has that defense playing a lot better from the beginning of the year. So on this one, I definitely lean towards Houston getting those 9 points. I think this game could be a little bit closer than people think. If you look at Detroit and Tampa Bay now, real quick, the blue teams, rushing offense, Detroit is 6th, Tampa Bay is 31st. Here's what's interesting in this game. Look at rush defense. Both of these teams are top 5 rush defenses. So I think what happens here, and both pass defenses aren't that good. Tampa Bay, in fact, has given up the most 100-yard receivers this year of any team. I think both rush defenses can contain the other team, and we're going to see a lot of passing. And that's why I like that one potentially to go over. So that's enough for playoff team ranks. Here's our team records against spread and OU, just our playoff teams. You can see Detroit and Tampa Bay are both 12-6 against spread. 2 best teams in the league playing each other. But look at the over-unders. Detroit's the best over team at 11-7, but Tampa's one of the best under teams, 12-6 to the under. A couple other notes here. Kansas City and Buffalo are 2 of the best under teams in the league, and that again is why I'm leaning under in that one. Now, rematches. Teams winning the regular season game wins the playoff game 65% of the time, so 2/3 of the time, the team who won the regular season game wins the playoff game, and they're 52% against the spread. Now, you can see there we've got 3 rematches. So, if we have 3 rematches and 2 out of 3 typically win, which 2 are winning and which one's going to get beat here? Starting with Kansas City at Buffalo. Buffalo beat Kansas City in Kansas City earlier this year. Now, Kansas City's beaten Buffalo the last couple of playoff times they've met, but I just have this feeling Buffalo gets over the hump finally this year at home. Houston at Baltimore. First game of the season, C.J. Stroud's very first start, so rookies always struggle their first start. And Baltimore won the game 25-9 at home. This one's in Baltimore, but Houston is a vastly different team from week 1. I think this game will be a lot closer than it was. Obviously, still lean towards Baltimore winning the game. Tampa at Detroit. I kind of like Detroit here to roll at home. They've been a great home team. Goff plays exceptionally well at home, and Tampa has one of the worst pass defenses maybe in the league. They're like 28th in the league in pass defense. So if I were to pick one upset, it's Patrick Mahomes, right? You got to look at Mahomes to go and win his rematch because he always does. Buffalo wins the regular season game. Kansas City wins the playoff game. That's happened multiple times. Will it happen again? All right, let's take a look for survivor purposes of which teams I would choose in play if we were still going on in our big pool. The number 1 team, in my opinion, San Francisco, they tend to take care of business in the playoffs, especially at home. They're not Dallas, guys. All right, Dallas, gives up 100 yards rushing to Aaron Jones. San Francisco's given up 0 100-yard rushers this year. 0. And I just don't think they're going to do it again. Also, think about that Green Bay-Dallas game. The very first series, Green Bay on third down does not make it. They call a penalty on Dallas. And I got to be honest, I thought it was a crappy call. I really did. I thought Dallas got screwed. And what happened then? Green Bay marches down the field and gets a touchdown. If Green Bay punts and Dallas gets the ball, what happens if Dallas goes and scores? Even 3. The whole game is different. That shows you how refs have got to keep the flags in the pocket unless it's truly a penalty. Could it happen here? It could happen again. Green Bay could score first, and that changes everything. But my gut says San Francisco, who typically jumps out and is good in the first quarter, I'm going to show you that in a minute, jumps out and wins this game. Detroit, I think, is the play you play this week in Survivor because you want to save San Francisco and Baltimore if that's who you think's in the Super Bowl, and that's why I think we'd get there. And I like Detroit at home against Tampa. Houston at Baltimore third, and the only reason is because I think Houston's just a vastly improved team. They're scary. C.J. Stroud is scary. He's really good. I think Kansas City at Buffalo would be the risky one because Buffalo's a favorite, and Mahomes beats Buffalo in the playoffs all the time. All right, just a reminder here. These are the teams that give up the most 100-yard rushers, and you'll notice out of the playoff teams, Baltimore and Green Bay give up the most 100-yard rushers. Devin Singletary for Houston's been running the ball pretty well. The teams who give up the least are Houston and San Francisco. And that's why I lean towards those two teams to do well, certainly San Francisco to win. I don't know if Houston can beat Baltimore. I think they're going to have a better game than people think, though. Most 100-yard receivers, Tampa Bay is number 1, giving up 10 of them this year. The teams that give up the least, Kansas City's only given up 200-yard receivers this year. Most 300-yard passers, once again, Tampa Bay's on the list. Houston's also on the list. That's where Baltimore can get them. Giving up the least 300-yard passers, you can see, once again, Kansas City and Baltimore are on that list. That's what makes C.J. Stroud against Baltimore's defense really interesting. Here are your current betting trends before we get in our top 5 plays. You can see 54% are on Green Bay over Frisco, catching the 9.5. It makes sense. We just saw that stat that said teams giving 8 to 9.5 points in this round are 2-10 against the spread. So I can't argue there, but I do lean San Francisco. If I were to pick San Francisco or Baltimore, I'd lean San Francisco, but I may be on the points too. Tampa Bay. People are leaning to Tampa Bay getting that 6.5. People are leaning to Kansas City getting the 3. Mahomes in the playoffs. People are leaning towards Baltimore, 53%. I kind of disagree on that one. Everyone's going to over. 4 overs, heavy overs. That's standard public. We saw last year 4 unders in this round. 4-0 to the under. I'm going to tell you, be careful. I'm not saying 4-0 to the over couldn't happen. I'd be careful. All right, here's our top 5 picks. You can see our yearly number is 50, 43, and 2. Not as good as I wanted, but not awful. We're winning at least. But here's my top 5 picks this week. I like the Baltimore-Houston over. Just as I said, I think Houston will score points this weekend. I think Baltimore will, so I like the 43.5 over. And as we showed you, that total in the divisional round has been 10-5 to the over. I think this is the one that gets you over. McCaffrey rushing over 91.5 yards. Look, Shanahan's not going to give up in the running game like McCarthy did last week. Green Bay's one of the worst rush defenses in the league at 28th. San Francisco has the most 100-yard games, mostly with Christian McCaffrey. I think he gets it. San Francisco, Green Bay under. I feel like this one's going under. I don't think Green Bay is going to put up 48 here. I don't think they're going to put up 30 here. I don't think they're going to put up 25 here. I think this game is tight. San Francisco will run the ball in the second half and grind out a victory. Tampa, Detroit over. Now, this is what I like because, as we talked about, both these teams have very good rush defenses, top 5. I think they'll contain. I don't think they'll stop each other's run game. They'll contain it. And that's going to force tons of throws, right? Which stops the clock, keeps the game going. Lots of passing. And both teams' pass defenses are not very good. Look for some 100-yard receivers this game. Sam Laporta, over 39.5 yards. Look, Tampa Bay is the second worst team against tight ends in fantasy points given up. Love Laporta. I think his number's low because he's been hurt, right? And last week he struggled a bit. You could tell he was hurt. I'm gambling this game, even being a little banged up, he gets to 40 yards or more. Bonus side. Now, I would put Isaiah Likely's over receiving yards in the top 5 easily because Houston's terrible against the tight end as well. But Mark Andrews might be back, so watch for that. If Andrews plays, then you got to discount Likely a little bit. But I have a feeling Andrews will play, but maybe not a full snap count, leaving Isaiah Likely a bunch of snaps, and then his over looks pretty good. I like Houston plus the 9.5. I think they'll keep it close. Jahmyr Gibbs over 23.5 receiving yards. And I also like Aaron Jones over his receiving yards. San Francisco gives up a lot of receiving yards to running backs. They don't give up running yards to running backs, but they do give up receiving yards to running backs. Down at 16.5, love it. And I think Gibbs, against Tampa Bay's strong rush defense, he'll be the one who plays more snaps than David Montgomery, and he'll probably make some catches. I like it. I'm going to say Brown over 92. You know, that's a big number, but he's just so good. Although maybe we look at his receptions over instead of yards. I'll have to take a look at that. Patrick Mahomes rushing over. I'm going to tell you something. He's one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL. But Patrick Mahomes during the regular season is smart enough not to take off and run and get hurt. Come playoff time, though, Patrick Mahomes hits his rushing over a lot. Now, I think I saw this week it's a 28. That's a pretty high number. He did hit it last week on the one run. But in this game, against a tough Buffalo defense, I think he's going to have to take off more. I still think he can get that number. All right, here's something I want to show you. You're against the spread first quarter, your best teams this year. San Francisco 12-5, the best. Baltimore 11-6. This is against the spread in the first quarter. You'll note Houston is one of the worst in the first quarter at 6-11. They tend to get off to slow starts. Baltimore gets off to fast starts. Baltimore's at home. Definitely taking Baltimore minus the 3.5 first quarter. I wish it was only 3. Maybe I'll have to tease it down. San Francisco's only given 2.5. They usually get off to strong starts at home. I like it. I'll probably bet that one too. Detroit gets off to decent starts. Tampa Bay is one of the worst, so you might look there as well. Detroit at home gets off to pretty good starts. I also like Travis Kelce, 61.5. If for Kelce, it's a gift. And he didn't play great last week. I do expect he'll play better this week, as long as it's not 5 degrees, right? I think it's supposed to be normal weather, 20 degrees. If it's below 0, then you got to watch that. I do like some Tampa Bay receiver to hit their number. Mike Evans seems to have a decent matchup there. He's tough to guard. 69.5 is a pretty big number. You might switch to Godwin, but his is like 65. I think I would lean Evans. And I like Goff, Mayfield as the top quarterbacks to hit their passing yards, although, you know, Lamar might do it too. All right, guys. That's this week's show. There's why I picked the primary poll for Survivor if you're still playing, and most of you aren't, so you don't care. Hey, everybody, thanks for CooperGroup.com, our sponsor. Check out their baseball grips, golf grips, drumsticks. Please like us and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate you being here. This has been Pick Winners with Cheezeman. Week number 20. Good luck. We hope you win.